Like, if you find yourself constantly looking for another video, you're just constantly searching for the perfect video, and it just doesn't exist. It's a lie. Like that does not exist within pornography, because what we're actually searching for is something radically deeper.
Hey guys, this month we're going to be sitting down with Marshall Shank. Marshall Shank is the Director of Outreach for Proven Men Ministries. And he's going to be walking us through This Is War. This Is War is a theme for the Proven Ministries Conference this year. And so we're going to be talking about the logistics of that conference, information pertaining to it, as well as just like why that theme and what that theme has to do with sexual dignity, sexual integrity. So stay tuned. I'm going to be sitting down with him in just a moment, and I'm looking forward to it. All right. So how are you, man?
I'm all right. Yeah, things have been busy. Working on trying to get everything ready for the conference.
Yeah, so tell me a bit about the conference.
Yeah, so well, we have two this year. So the first one will be here in Lynchburg, Virginia at Thomas Road Baptist Church on October 19th. And then we have a week off, and then that next week on November 2nd we'll be in Clearwater, Florida.
Sweet.
So at Featherstone Community.
Very cool. So, and this is the second annual conference. It'll be every year. Last year was the first.
Yeah. Last year was the first. It was good. It was small, which is just perfect for learning the ropes. So just trying to figure out the details of what does it look like to put on a conference. And it was a really intimate time that I think, for the majority of people who have shared, they said it was an awesome experience. So excited to have it a second year. And we'll see how it goes. So we've got a lot of really fun things planned. So.
Very cool. Can you share some of the things you got going on?
Yeah. So, one of the principles of the conference is just creating an intimate space for men to be able to meet outside of just the daily Proven Men groups or outside of just their daily church operation, whatever they're doing through that. And so with that in mind, we want to obviously read Scripture. We want to learn from Scripture. And so this year we have... our speaker's just going to be tapping into that. So the second thing would be we're going to pray a lot, just really spend time in the solitude of prayer, getting guys to, out of their Saturday, a moment to be able to just reconnect to the Lord. Maybe it's been a while, maybe it's just another day in the week to be able to have that opportunity, but we definitely don't want to quench that opportunity. And so
for sure.
At lunch, we're going to have axe throwing in Lynchburg, which is really cool.
That's
really psyched about that. So we'll have like one big tournament where there's a bunch of different giveaways for 1 through 6. So people who place 1st through 6th.
Have you done it before? Axe throwing?
No, this would be my first time. So
it's hard. It's a little bit more difficult than you imagine.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah.
There's a whole tournament around it.
For sure.
I actually built this whole trophy for the winner. But one of the coolest giveaways is one of our sponsors is Tellteller's Fly Shop here in Lynchburg. And they're actually giving away like a starter kit with a fly rod, a reel, all the stuff that you need, some flies to be able to get started on fly fishing if that's interesting for
that's awesome.
That person. So
is that a personal hobby of yours?
Yeah, and I can't compete, which is a bummer. So
for sure,
I could use another one, but I was really excited and really bummed at the same time. But,
right on.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. The theme of the conference, from what I understand, you guys have a staple theme. And it'll be every year consecutive. And so the theme is This Is War.
Right.
Can you tell me a little bit about kind of the genesis of that title and why Proven Ministries decided to anchor down with that kind of a theme?
Well, I think the original story is a little unexciting, but what it's turned into has been pretty awesome. So, Nick Liberto, our executive director, had said, "Hey, I want you to do a conference. It's up to you. You're doing all this stuff." And so he started in on that, and he said, "It's yours." So me being me just said, "Well, This Is War sounds awesome." So I can create whole themes around that. We can, I had the vision for what I wanted it to look like at least year one, and so from t-shirt design to marketing design. So. So we went with that. I think for me, a lot of my struggle with sexual integrity and struggle to keep sexual integrity has been the way I view it in a battle like state. For me personally, I had to come to the realization that I needed to hate this and fight it as if it was an enemy in front of me. And so whether it's pornography or just lust in general, I see it as a tangible enemy that I'm in competition with, and so I'm in battle with, that I'm supposed to contend with physically, not only physically, mentally, and spiritually. like a regular fight, like a war. So so that's kind of the concept. That's where it came from. And watching men gather around that, all the themes really work with that, right? Like getting men together to form a battle plan, to be able to have a place where they can come and experience Jesus in a way that inspires them to go out and fight that, but also prepares them for and equips them with the resources necessary, the groups necessary to be able to see that thing through. I would much rather have somebody on my side in the battle than be alone. And I think James 5:16, confess your sins to one another, pray with one another so that you might be healed, is a pretty good representation, pretty good scripture for the reality that we need one another. And so, with our hope being able to plug them into Proven Men groups post the conference, it seems to be like a pretty awesome opportunity to be on a pretty awesome theme to cover all those things. So
yeah, that sounds awesome. Last year, remember for the themes for the blogs leading up to the conference, they're doing the Ephesians armor of God, and so they're taking each piece of armor every week. And the piece that was most stood out most to me in line with that was the shield, because in the kind of the Roman phalanx, like the shield was always to protect the person beside you. Where the shield was actually never for you.
That's good,
right? And I thought that was significant, like the shield of faith. So like, how are you exercising faith to protect the person beside you? And that's in Paul's imagination as he's writing the thing. I mean, he's chained to a guard who's got all this stuff on as he's in Rome awaiting trial. And so the idea of like having faith, not just for yourself, but for the person beside you, and that sexual integrity, sexual dignity isn't supposed to happen apart from community. Right. So that sounds like a consistent aspect of the This Is War conference that continues to play out.
Yeah, it's cool to see. Yeah, and I think that falls really closely in line with Proven Men groups. Being in this position, we have the 12-week study that guys go through, which is an individual walk with Jesus, building in a consistent and intimate relationship with Him. But then you have the groups, and what we find is like guys either want one or the other, right? Whether they want to be alone going through the study, or whether they like the groups, they like being able to come and share and talk about their weeks with others. And I think both of those things, equipping them for their personal walk with Jesus through the study, as well as getting them in groups, maybe through their church or through a leadership pledge, however it may turn out. That's our real hope, is to get them side by side with shields in their arms.
So you've seen guys go through the study, and so just to reiterate, it's 5 days a week, the guys are meeting with Jesus either in the morning or at night. It's about 30, 45 minutes. And then they're doing that for 12 weeks. But then every week they meet with other guys in their church who are going through the exact same thing, doing the exact same thing. And they meet and they just process. And they pray and they communicate. And so that's the communal aspect, as well as kind of the one-on-one with Jesus, being transformed in that space. So you got like both of those elements, and they're coming together. And you've seen guys that have tried to do kind of the war aspect of like one-on-one with Jesus, but they haven't done the communal aspect so well. And then maybe vice versa, the people who show up every week, but they aren't meeting with Jesus face to face. So do you see a kind of like growth disparity between like the person who does one or the other, but just doesn't wage war on both those fronts?
For sure. I think it cheapens the experience. To your analogy, it seems like there's a flank open, right? The attacks are stronger. The attacks are more consistent. When guys are consistent in the study, and then they're consistent in the groups, it seems like the protection of having that group there is what guards them. It allows them to be open and honest with other men, which allows them to open up their heart towards Jesus in their quiet time. And so those two things done in tandem, I think obviously spending time with Jesus is important, right? It's the focal point of freedom, right? To be able to connect with Him. But there is something special. There is something special about sitting down with men and them sharing about their weeks in intimate detail, how they feel about their week. And how they struggled and why they struggled, and being able to. Oftentimes, our brothers can see things that we can't see ourselves. So I think that is the aspect of. There's a side of me that's unprotected. So.
Yeah, there's an element, it seems to me also, that this is almost a unique conversation within Western culture, because other cultures typically don't don't have such isolated categories for the individual and the community. You know, so even like Christianity, at like understanding Christianity as kind of like an individualized, isolated form of knowing God isn't actual Christianity. Like Christianity takes place in community, and like even like being the church is a part of Christian identity. So even that kind of isolation isn't true Christianity. So it's cool to see Proven take those pieces and push them together. Yeah. And then it's interesting then to see people then try and pull those pieces apart and to see it fail. Right. You know, but like when these things come together, Proven Ministries has like just incredible fruit when people actually like go down and wage war on these fronts. For sure. Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah. So so for the conferences last year there were 2 different speakers. This year, 1 speaker. Right. Is that right? And so just curious, like how speaking and prayer and worship play out in that context, and I guess maybe how you see that flesh out as kind of an act of waging war. Yeah.
Well, I think with those things, they're prepping the heart for something deeper. So for our conferences, with the intention of intimacy and developing intimacy within a conference, right? Smaller is easier to manage. You know, one day we'll have to hire somebody else to figure out how the logistics of having a ton of people there. You know, I'm thinking thousands. Sure. But within worship, just preparing your heart, singing songs to God.
Last year, how many people?
About 103, I think, Very total cool. registered guests. Cool. Yeah, this year we're expecting the space really only holds 300, and
shooting for that number then.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's the hope. Anything past that will kind of take away from
the experience.
Yeah, the experience, but. So worship, speaking, and the prayer aspects is just preparing the hearts of men from an individual basis, right? They're singing their songs in a collective, sure, being able to hear other men sing. We're going to tear it back a little bit. One of the big complaints that we got last year was that the music was too loud, which I thought was funny. Which is ironic because 30 seconds into the conference, all the sound went gone. You know, it just like
I remember that, in. Man. Yeah. Technical difficulties.
And so when we got the sound back on, it was a less of an experience, which is cool to see. That like what we designed to build, this is the way that we're going to go. So we're going to do a more acoustic session this year in Lynchburg. And then
that's cool.
Yeah. So So obviously it'll be plugged in so everybody can hear. Shane and Shane type S stuff. Cool. And so you're not going to be there. You're going to be there, but not.
I won't be fine. Don't worry. Still come. Yeah. You won't have to listen to me.
So so those things are just experiencing an individual walk with Jesus, experiencing him individually, like being spoken to within the larger collective, and then from there we have, I think, which is the most important part of the day, is the breakout sessions with individual guys. So the guys will meet in a group of 10. We have a guided study and section where they get to experience what it would be like to be a part of a Proven Men group. Cool. They'll get to experience it with the guys that they came with, guys that may be strangers with, to be able to share, be able to walk through what God's been teaching them throughout that space.
Right, because there are benefits to both.
Right, exactly. So we want to flesh that reality out in our conference as well. Very cool. And so this year we're actually doing 2 of those breakout sessions, which is different than last year as well.
Very sweet. So there was positive feedback last year with those breakout sessions?
They loved them. They said there wasn't enough time for it. That's cool. And so, which is true. It ran up against the end of the day. And so what we're going to do is a morning breakout session and an evening breakout session this time. So very sweet. We're going to leave a lot more room at lunch too for just being able to hang out, right? Like you
Yeah, I really enjoyed that aspect last year. It was cookout, and the food was awesome. And it was under tents. It was sweet.
Yeah, so City Barbecue's
That's
coming
cool.
back. Yeah.
Very cool.
So excited about that.
For sure. I want to traverse a little bit over to, you had stated earlier on that learning to hate your sin was a big part of your own journey on learning to wage war. So as you're, that'll be kind of a question I'm curious to look into as you're pulling some of those thoughts together. That's been significant for me. When it's when I leave an option open, then I actually end up engaging that option. Right. It is clinically like an addiction. Like it rewires your neural network so that like when you feel certain things, experience certain things, it only makes sense to act out these ways. So Jesus' teaching is salient, right? Like if your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. I pluck it out, those kinds of things. So learning to tear those things away, but first you have to like hate them, to disassociate with them. Right. Even if you don't, like it's a practice of obedience that the emotions catch up with eventually. Right. So that's been a big part of my own journey and experience with the stuff, because at the end of the day, we are designed to love beauty, and we'll be drawn to the wrong kinds of beauty unless we reorient ourselves towards healthy beauty, and kind of sever the ties with those other kind of estranged or deranged forms of beauty. So I'm with you on that. So like learning to wage war in that aspect. What's it been like for you? You are married, you know, so it's a little bit different of a paradigm for me as a single guy who's been learning how to live that and practice that. For somebody I might be with one day, while at the same point just wanting to know Jesus now and here and not live for, the sin that I might carry over and give to somebody else, but like wanting like my heart to be wholesome and true, because it actually affects the way I see people. Like even like if I'm in the coffee shop and I've been like binging on this stuff, somebody walks in, as the girl walks in, I immediately look up, evaluate, and go back down. It takes 1 second, but that's just kind of this moral framework that it implants within my head, my imagination, just to evaluate people off of physicality, and to treat people who are like more beautiful, like to give them more attention, to be more enthusiastic, and like listening to them and caring for them and all those things. And it's like, no, like Jesus calls us to love the least of these, you know, calls us to love the person that our heart doesn't naturally go towards. Those are the kinds of people that we need to actively go towards. And I've seen just pornography and the practices of lust really contaminates the teachings of Jesus and the kind of impulses towards holiness in my own heart and imagination and mind. So what's it been like for you? And
so I think as a married man, the words that ring hardest in my mind is Jesus saying, if you look on a woman with lustful intent in your heart, you've committed adultery. And you know, I'm not sure that even still today that is something that is true in my life, that I see as true, right? I know it's true, but I see as true and I feel as true. Like if I thought about like when I have a lustful thought about somebody else, right? Like what would it be like? What would I feel like if I've just committed adultery on my wife? I don't feel that way towards that act still. Like there's days that takes place, but like the remorse and the shame and the guilt and the conviction that I would feel towards that act, I still see as lesser. And you see Jesus just tear that down, right? Like this is what's going on in your heart. Right. One time, like the few times that he speaks on intent, like here's your intent and this is what it causes. This is what it actually is. And so as a married man, that's, you know, post pornography, right? And even in the midst of that, like pornography in itself, just creating these, for me, I think the thing that I hated the most was the desire for more when I had the best, desire for better when I had the best, I guess is the best way to put it, right? Like one of the last times that I ever watched pornography, I remember thinking, here I am looking for somebody to want me, you know, like I'm actively seeking out somebody to want me, and I have a woman who has seen all the deepest, darkest secrets in my life, who knows everything about me, all the worst things, all the disgusting parts of Marshall, and she still wants me. And now this person on the screen who I'm trying to interact with has no idea who I am, and has no desire for me whatsoever. And I'm trying to create that fantasy, and I was sickened with myself. And so, you know, with that in mind and taking that principle into just the everyday battle of sexual integrity thoughts, right? Like keeping lustful thoughts away from me, being able to see people within their worth past their physicality and what I think about their physicality. When I come back to the reality as a married man, this is who my wife is. This is who she knows me to be, and this is how she treats me, despite all the things she knows about me. It's really easy to come to the reality that like there's not going to be anybody better than that. Right? There's just not going to be anybody better. Like I don't want to have to put in that emotional effort with anybody else in any crazy fantasy. And so, and then the switch to hating those things is, I think, when you live long enough with the like understanding that battle, that this is what your brain's doing. Like this is what's taking place in my heart. That it's seeking something that's never going to satisfy. It's seeking after things that just don't. They don't have any value. They don't have any weight. It's disgusting to me at that point. It's just like, it's frustrating to be able to deal with that. I think that's where the hate has come in. Realizing that like, this is for whatever reason, what my flesh desires on its worst day. And on any day, right?
Yeah.
And being able to take that mentality of as a fighter, as a guy who likes combat, like seeing that enemy in front of me and tactically thinking through how I'm going to take it down, how I'm going to conquer it has been super helpful. So thinking about knowing it well enough, knowing my enemy well enough to know how it penetrates my heart, how it attacks, right? I have a really good understanding now of my own heart dealing with the discontent of where those things come into play.
For sure.
So yeah.
The distinction of like kind of heart wants versus like condition of the soul. I find those to be helpful because there are a lot of times when I don't hate pornography, but I hate that I hate it. Yeah. I hate that I love it, rather.
Yeah.
Right?
That's good.
So it's interesting because like the Proverbs is oriented that way, where it's like, hey, you foolish, cry out for wisdom, right? So it's like realizing that you're a fool and then crying out for wisdom is wise, you know? So there's this thing where it's like, I love this thing. It's choking out my soul. So I hate it.
Yeah.
Right. And so like that kind of distinction, because there are plenty of times when it's like, well, I want this thing in my life, you know? And it's like, well, why do you want it? Or like, what is it doing to your soul? What is it doing to your relationships and imagination? Yeah. And then like taking those answers, and those answers are ugly. And so it causes me to hate it.
Yeah.
Right. Which then wants me then to reevaluate my desires and passions. And I think that distinction has been important because a lot of guys just really like this stuff, right. You know, and again, rightly so, because we're designed to love the naked form, to love the beauty of the naked form. And the aesthetics matter. So let me redirect for a second.
Well, I think before you redirect, go ahead. I think the analogy or the word picture that I see in my mind is like seeing this photo of a place, right? And you find it so beautiful and you think it's so great and it looks so grand in this photo. And you love it so much that you want to go to it, right? Like that, like, okay, well, I'm going to spend the money to travel to this place. And then when you get there, it's nothing like the picture had portrayed it to be. There's trash everywhere. The view's not like it's photoshopped clearly. It doesn't look right. And I feel like with social media, we get that. With social media, with pornography, we dress these things up. With pornography of it in its essence, it dresses it up as something that's satisfying. It's something that gives you pleasure. But we all know what it's like to live a Christian life, to walk away from that and go, man, I didn't get from it what I thought it was. Like there's no. My youth pastor said one time that like, if you find yourself constantly looking for another video, you're just constantly searching for the perfect video and it just doesn't exist. It's a lie. Like that does not exist within pornography, because what we're actually searching for is something radically deeper. And so the picture that we see before temptation, before sin sets in, right? Like when we're tempted in those things, draws us to it. And then we get there and it's just not what we had anticipated. It's actually the opposite of what we anticipated. It's ugly. And so when you learn to... Yeah, that cognitive function of just thinking through, like, actually I've been there before and I know what it's like, right? It's not as good as it looks, right? I know that to be the case, right? And not being numb to that reality, right? Not being numb to like, well, I know what it feels like in the time being. I know what it looks like to look at that picture and think it looks good. Totally. You know, I like being able to travel there. Right?
For sure.
Starting to hate those processes, knowing that it's actually not what it promises to be.
Yeah, the moment after is so sobering, right? Like people blog and write about this. I mean, all over the internet, just how like the moment after you're so sober, right? So sober, because the average, like the average person who watches porn, they watch it for like hours. You know, like we don't just get on and like, oh, she's pretty, and then watch the scene and then get off. Like we spent hours watching video after video after video, and it's like this kind of collage where we're taking all these different kinds of bodies and images and scenes and actions and then meshing them up together into this climactic moment, right, where then we can then just, and then afterwards it's just this sobering moment where you're just like what did I just rinse myself with, you know, because you know you're different afterwards, like the passion's gone, you just spilled it everywhere. And it's interesting because like a lot of people right afterwards have different forms of kind of like coping stimulations where they'll jump straight onto their phone, or they'll like jump right into like an audiobook or a podcast, or like go straight into like Netflix to binge, because they have to drown out the sound of their soul kind of dying in that moment. They have to move on quickly.
Yeah.
Right. And so those are the moments where you know that you actually hate a thing because of what it's killing you. Right.
Yeah.
And those are the moments when people need to be aware, like, no, like this is war. This is war.
Yeah. This is the battle that I face.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. It's been cool too to practice the communal aspect, where a confession is typically like an after the fact thing. It's like, hey guys, sorry I messed up. You know. And so it's been cool to hate it and so practice it in a preemptive way. Yeah. Right. Where it's like hey guys, like I'm
struggling.
Right. Yeah. Like my biology, like chemicals are going haywire tonight, and I need someone to call right now. Right. Like, no, the text message doesn't work. It's like, hey, buddy, come on over. You know, like plenty of friends do that for me all the time. They come on over, we're about to eat dinner. Right. You know, and it's like you're being seen and exposed, which is okay because Jesus did it first, right? He exposed himself naked on a cross. And so I was able to do that, follow after the way of Jesus. But like it's definitely scary because it's an act of vulnerability. But like that is the act of war, where you're confessing preemptively instead of after the fact, which has been a different way that I've been learning how to engage community as a single man who has this kind of background with this thing that's had real like roots and power, you know, in his soul. So it's been an interesting journey.
Yeah, and I think too, we're speaking on the flesh side of things, of like the things that my flesh desires outside of the nature of God. But I think in a real sense, we have principalities of this air that would love to draw us away. I don't think it's a coincidence that men's activity in the church and their struggle with pornography, I think they're correlated with one another. I think their service, their desire, their relationship with God is correlated. I know that's true in my own personal life. I did not feel like I was able to lead because of this sin in my life, because of this act of sin in my life. And it's something that strips us away from any act of like godliness in that moment. That sobering moment just brings us to a lack of understanding of the gospel so quickly. Like, how could God love me in this situation? So you watch porn on Saturday and you go to church on Sunday and you feel ill-equipped and removed from the ability to even do that. And so I think not only are we at war with our flesh and our flesh's desires, but we're also at war with an enemy who would love to keep us in a place of suffering, right? Of distraction, of
impotence, even in the church, in that sense, like disqualified. Right. Yeah.
And so I think both in like understanding, like sometimes Satan does need to tap into me because I've got my own flesh to distract me. But in a real sense, watching proven men and watching men go through the study and then come out of it, the stuff that they experience like supernaturally through the study, like things that come up in their life that I don't think is a coincidence to why, like them being a part of this group, 40 years of watching pornography every single day, and you step into this space and your life starts to blow up. I think there's a lot of outside forces as well that I don't like to give credit to, because I don't like giving credit where credit isn't due. But it is a real thing that we are experiencing.
For sure. It's startlesome because I live with a married guy, and on the nights when he has just like dreams, those would be the same nights that I have dreams, like almost down to like a T, like the exact same nights. So there's just something wonky that happens in those spaces. So like the spiritual reality is like important to be aware of. There are times when like it's not my biology, like it is just like something is grabbing a hold of my imagination because I gave it authority over it at a certain point. And Jesus is like, no, we can take dominion back, right? We can reconquer, we can expand Eden to the ends of the earth, the ends of your soul, in that way.
Yeah, we start to get into things past my Southern Baptist comfortabilities, but
you're doing great.
I know it's a reality.
You're doing great, man. Yeah, for sure. Jesus is Lord, yeah?
Yeah.
So remind us again, when is the conference? And it's one day. Just fill in some of those details one more time.
Yeah, so 2 conferences. We have the one in Lynchburg, Virginia is on October 19th. Cool. At Thomas Road Baptist Church on a Saturday. So check-in will be from like 8 to 9. We'll start the conference at 9 o'clock. Cool. So get there a little bit earlier, grab you some coffee. Things of that sort. And it'll go till 5 o'clock. lunch is provided, right? You can register at provenmen.org/thisiswar, all one word. We'll have both conferences. So then Clearwater is November 2nd.
Clearwater down in Florida.
In Florida, yes. Will be November 2nd. So if you're closer to there, obviously sign up at that one unless you want to come to Lynchburg.
Sure.
And so November 2nd, same time frame, 9 to 5.
Okay.
One day event. So
for pastors, lay people, for fathers, bring their sons, those kinds of things. Like, what's the age demographic? What are you guys working with?
Yeah, bring as many as you think will be comfortable.
Sweet.
Fathers know, right? Typically, the study in which this topic, it's going to be unadulterated. So whatever you think is for youth. High schoolers, I think, could be in that conversation. I think they need to be in that conversation.
Yeah.
Anything younger than that, it's up to the dad. But yeah, if you're an individual guy, if you're a pastor, bring your members of your church, guys in your church, men's ministry leader, same thing.
Cool.
Let's pack this thing out. We here in Lynchburg have about, the slots are filling up fast. So getting guys registered now, and I guess on September 19th, the price will go up. So early bird discount is what we're calling it, is now. So,
and that's till when? Say it one more time.
September 19th.
Okay.
So getting signed up before then is ideal.
Sweet. What is the price tag on?
Yeah. So right now, a month out from both of these conferences, it'll be $55 from a month to there.
Okay.
And at the door.
Okay.
And then $40
right now.
Right now.
Sweet.
You save $15, might as well.
Totally, yeah. And then you got the foods included. The conference itself is included. Got axe throwing.
Axe throwing, T-shirt. Yeah,
very cool.
Yeah, a lot of giveaways.
Did we mention axe throwing?
Axe throwing. Yeah, that's Lynchburg specific. I haven't found an axe thrower trailer in Clearwater yet, but
right on.
Yeah, we'll have to try. Keep trying.
For sure. This sounds awesome. I'm excited to be there. We will have the link to that so you guys can sign up down in the show notes. Also, we'll throw something up on the video itself, and I hope to see you guys there. Yeah. Marshall, it's been really great to be with you, man. Thanks for diving into all things physical and spiritual.
Yeah.
It's been great to be with you.
Yeah, you too, man.
Yeah, for sure.
See you later.
Bye, dude.